This is the Daily Freakout. My name's Bobby Freakout. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think we've got things working out pretty well today. We're actually ahead of time by 10 minutes. And unfortunately, I've got a light on, and if I look directly at that camera, that light is right in my face, and then I get the little dot whenever I look at other things. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you tuned in yesterday, you'll know that we are going to be listening to Mr. Hammond, Klaus Wunderlich. Today it is the record of the week. We're going to be listening to predominantly side one. It's going to be pretty exciting. We've got a few things to talk about. We've got Cuba, we've got Rage Against the Machine, and we've got AI helping stoners, which is something close to my heart. And why don't we just get straight into it? Let's talk about AI and helping stoners, because stoners need our help, don't they? Yes. AI helps man recover 400,000 in Bitcoin 11 years after he got high and forgot the password. What a silly goose. That's the wrong camera. That's the better camera. Thank you. I have at times, not currently, but I have at times been a 24/7 wake and bake stoner. The biggest difference the biggest difference to the stereotype for me is that when I smoke, how I describe it is that it calms my mind down. It slows it down a bit, and I can do things like read. For instance, over Christmas, I decided to purchase, and I sat down and read a book about the CIA. I finished off Game of Thrones. Right here. I finished off A Feast for Crows, Game of Thrones. And I'm pretty sure there it is. I then read and finished, wrong way, Surprise Kill Vanish by Annie Jacobson, about the CIA. And I managed to read those books fairly easily. Well, not easily, I don't think, because I'm not a reader. Reading, I find a bit of a struggle. It's not dyslexia, but it's definitely like an ADHD style. You reread the same paragraph over and over again. And to be honest, the CIA have got a lot to answer for. Like, there's some stories in here that are just stupid. I think having an agency like the CIA is probably necessary in the world, but some of the stuff they've done, oh my lord! And you got to imagine that this is the stuff they allowed out. There's so much stuff that they haven't told you or told us. And I find that cannabis allows me to sit and read. I had many times over Christmas where I sat on the couch with a dog on either side of me, had a smoke, made a thermos of coffee, and sat and read for an hour or so. And I got through books. Since then, I think I've read a handful of pages of the many books that I have on the go. And it's a real shame. I am planning that with my birthday coming up in a couple of months, I'm probably going to buy some more and probably sit on the couch and read. And so the idea that stoners are these weird, forgetful people, I don't get it. It doesn't compute with the way I work, or the way that my brain works. There are absolutely negatives to drug use of any kind. Using too much, using too often, all that kind of stuff is incredibly relevant and should never be ignored. We should always remember that that any drug can be abused and overused and all that kind of stuff. I'm not advocating for that, but this guy's experience of being forgetful and forgetting the password to his Bitcoin wallet is not the same as my experience. The user known as CPRKRN, Capricorn, on X shared the wild crypto recovery story on May 13th, saying Claude helped him regain access to 5 Bitcoin after years of failed attempts. He apparently, the Bitcoin's worth like $398,000 or something, so almost $400,000. Even if it's, who cares what currency that's in? That's pretty a good chunk of money. According to the thread, the wallet had been locked since the user's college days. He said he originally bought the crypto when it was worth around $250. So 5 Bitcoin at $250 each. What's that? 1,025? It's 1,250, isn't it? 5? And I'm sober. Before he lost access to the wallet after changing the password whilst high. Now, throw in the comments what you think. Think about what you think the password might be, because it's absolutely hilarious and stupid. He said he'd tried to recover the funds. Trillions of possible password combinations had been used. The breakthrough came when he reportedly uploaded the files from his old college computer into Claude, the AI, and Claude helped him work through it. To quote from one of his posts, "I tried like 7 trillion passwords. Found this old mnemonic a few weeks ago that ended up being the old password before I changed it. Thought I was screwed. Last-ditch effort, dumped my whole college computer into Claude. I found an old wallet file that the mnemonic," and then it cuts off. So that was a waste of reading that. So this is another thing for don't get rid of tech. Keep your laptop. Keep your computer, because you never know what's going to happen. Little tangent there. Doing this little show, because of the Roland Aerocaster that I use, you can connect up iPhones to use as cameras. And so that's what I've got going right now. I've got a camera there. I've got a camera there. And they are iPhones. Because they're my old iPhones that I've kept and held on to. Oh, pardon me. I was, not that long ago, it was implied that I was a hoarder. And I didn't like that, because I'm not a hoarder. But I like stuff. And so I just never got rid of my iPhones. I always kept hold of them. And to discover that I can use them with this system, and that I can use them as multiple cameras on this, is absolutely fantastic. And I'm very pleased about that. So don't throw away old tech. You never know when you're going to need that cardboard box or that envelope or those papers. I've got too many cardboard boxes. Actually, just up there, I've got record boxes that I bought records in that were posted to me. And so I need to start selling my records and using those boxes, because it's the exact reason why I held on to them, was because I thought to myself, I may end up selling records and I need some way of shipping them out, and I don't want to waste all this perfectly good cardboard. So yeah. So this guy was able to the poster says that he's even planning on naming his child after Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, which seems like a fair deal considering he's now around $400,000 richer. That's the company that made Claude the AI. $400,000, that would change my life. Like, seriously change my life if I got that kind of money. Like, if I discovered that amount of money from some investment I'd made 20 years ago somehow, then, or 11 years ago it was, it would absolutely change my life. It would not allow me to live the rest of my life comfortably, though. I would still have to do things. I would have to take that money and invest it somehow. I reckon I could live on $50,000 a year at the moment, So it would last me 8 years. So it'd be almost a decade of living, which would be great. But after that, I would have to go. So what I'm saying is I would not name my my child after the head of the company. So if you're trying to think of what the password was, you're never going to guess it, just like he never guessed it. Why is it froze for a second there? The password was, and pardon my French, lol 420 fuck the police exclamation mark hashtag, oh no, not hashtag, asterisk smiley face. Lol 420 fuck the police exclamation mark asterisk smiley face. That was the gentleman's password, of which he got. He forgot that he did. And to be honest, it sounds like it's a pretty good password. If it took him 11 years in an AI bot in order to work it out, it sounds like the password did its job. I've got a somewhat elaborate series of passwords, and they confuse the hell out of me sometimes when I'm trying to remember which one I've used. And so this guy, he went to absolute town on working that one out. Anyway, you know what time it is? It's time for Record of the Week. This is Klaus Wunderlich with the Mr. Hammond with his version of Hello Dolly. I really, when I've been editing and stuff, I've been wondering how much the mix is. So let me know in the comments if you want to hear more of the record, less of the record, more of me, less of me, that kind of thing. Again, I listen to this and I imagine a little older couple in their lounge room having a little bit of a boogie. You can imagine the Donald Trump dance, It's fantastic. And if you know Hello Dolly at all, then you'll know how lovely this is. Again, I reckon this would be fantastic in a cafe or something like that whilst people are eating. In actual fact, wouldn't it be funny if you had an organ player in the elevator and you got in the elevator and there was actually a person playing this? Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Klaus. We'll be back to you in just a moment for a little bit more. But for right now, we're going to move on to our next headline. Rage Against the Machine's Tom Morello doing something that no one was expecting. That's a bit of sarcasm there for you, because this is completely unsurprising of Rage Against the Machine's Tom Morello. Often in a band, you assume the lead singer is, to a large degree, the leader or the antagonist. But it turns out that it's Rage Against the Machine's guitarist, Tom Morello, who has continued to be as political as they come. And to a certain degree, I quite like it. I think that he's, to a certain degree, he puts his money where his mouth is. People gave Rage a bit of shit not that long ago because they were charging a lot for tickets and stuff like that. And people were like, oh, you're a millionaire guitarist, blah, 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 blah. How can you be claiming you're of the streets and all that kind of stuff. And even though, like, every now and again you see like pictures of his house and his kids and everything, and you go, oh yeah, now the guy's has made some money off Rage and off his whatever. The guy clearly has some money. And you think to yourself, oh, how much of it is a show? How much of it is a performance? But like, he's used the same guitar and same amp and minimal pedals and minimal gear. Like, he's not an extravagant gear guitarist. He doesn't have, like, I've got more pedals in this room than he has on his pedal board. Now, I'm sure at home he's probably got a bunch of different stuff and he probably goes a little bit and stuff. But that's his profession. But the guy doesn't, or at least doesn't seem to be an extravagant, over-the-top kind of guy. He constantly turns up to protests. Like, Zach De La Rocca, the singer, or the vocalist of Rage Against the Machine, has been MIA for quite a while. So when he talks about political stuff, you go, oh, well, you're not exactly on the floor or on the street marching, fighting, are you? But Tom Morello turns up. He took to the streets in protest against ICE's new agents the claim that agents will flood New York City. So it was an anti-ICE demonstration. And given that Morello passes for fairly white, but he's got a few... his background is not... I feel like if I was more worldly and versed in the world, I would have a better... I would be able to tell you that where the name like Morello comes from, and I'd be able to work this out. He was born in Harlem in New York City, raised in... here we go. Here's his Wikipedia. Born in Harlem, New York City, and raised in Libertyville, Illinois, Morello became interested in music and politics while in high school. He attended Harvard. So he's got a degree in social studies. He met Zach De La Rocca... he's done a solo project called The Night Watchman. So his parents have names that are so his dad's name I can't even pronounce. Negath Nijoroj or something, and Mary Morello. An American mother of Italian and Irish descent, and a Kenyan father. So that's a pretty... I mean, that sums up American diversity, doesn't it? His mother is Italian-Irish, and so you've got to assume that maybe her parents were immigrants, and then a Kenyan father, who I assume is some kind of immigrant. I'm just going to assume that. He's disappeared, though, which is a bit... He doesn't seem to be part of it anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, what I'm saying is that the guy is... He's had success. There's no doubt that he's had success. But he seems to still put his money where his mouth is most of the time by attending these kind of rallies. He was at Occupy Wall Street a bunch of times. And yeah, the guy's 61. Jeez, he looks good for 61, doesn't he? And you can see the Kenyan... Now that I look at his face, you can see the Kenyan influence there. Again, fantastic example of the mix of... The benefits of the mixing of races, and the benefits that we can get from that. During the event, which was called Hands Off NYC, the musician called for a mass movement to oppose the administration's aggressive immigration tactics. It does seem like, even though ICE seems to have quietened down a little bit in the news at the moment because other crazy stuff's happening in that country, it does appear that they are still present and still doing some absolutely crazy stuff over there. Everything I hear about ICE and stuff in the news is just crazy, because it's not like they weren't doing this before the current administration. The current administration seems to have just said, hey, go crazy, because they were deporting people and getting rid of people previously. It was always a thing. Illegal immigrants working and being part of the United States has always been a thing, and they were always getting kicked out. Like, it was a constant thing where they had to be quiet and stuff. And the crazy thing is, they work and they contribute, but it's not like they vote or anything. And as far as I'm aware, most of them probably don't get too much, if any, government assistance because they're illegal. So how can they? It just seems like a very strange, over-the-top reaction from the right-leaning members of the United States and the current administration. But it is good to see people like Tom Morello out there on the street doing it, whether he, I don't know, maybe he contributes some money to the cause, or whether his name actually brings any more eyes or any more notice to the display, to the protest. I don't know. Who knows how these things work? I'm not a big... Even though I would never tell anyone not to protest, I just don't see protests making that much of a difference that often. Especially on the street protests. They never seem to work. I mean, what did Occupy Wall Street achieve? It definitely brought more attention, sure. And we know about things a bit more, and we have attitudes and stuff, but I just wondered, how much did it really bring? How much do these protests actually bring? But never would suggest anyone not do it. If you want to do it and you think you're going to make a difference, you should absolutely go and do it. Protesting is on the streets like that is something that we should all enshrine in. I can't even think of the right words there. It's important. I might question it a bit, but it's definitely an important thing. Speaking of protest, so yesterday I recommended a podcast, and that playing that podcast with a little bit of Parliament Funkadelic got me a copyright notice. Not a strike or anything, but a notice. Because apparently they allow usage of their thing. Mr. Klaus Wunderlich has not gotten in touch. Now, unfortunately, Klaus died in the mid-90s, I believe. But Rotorsound, the company that made this album, have not gotten in touch and suggested that I don't play Klaus's music. So that's very nice of them. And that's why we like Klaus. Klaus is the man. And again, isn't this nice? It's very nice. Just... nice and relaxing. Take you into your morning. Thank you, Klaus. Thank you for all the work you've done. As the US starves it of oil, Cuba is pulling off one of the fastest solar revolutions on the planet. This is something touching on something from yesterday. I talked about how it appears, from my uneducated perspective, that the United States, and Donald Trump in particular, is pushing Europe away, and Europe are saying, okay. And Europe are working on it without Donald Trump and without the United States. And this is another example of it. Cuba has been oppressed and attacked by the United States forever. Again, hello CIA, looking at you guys. For potentially acceptable reasons, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really say whether the United States are the bad guys in the situation or not, or whether it's just like two sets of bad guys having a bad off. But Cuba is currently being blockaded and starved of oil in terms of fuel, petrol, etc. And so China has said, hey guys, we've been developing solar panels. You guys should check this out. This is some good tech. Get on it. And even though it's not going to it's going fast, but it's not going necessarily quite fast enough. And to quote the article here, others caution that Cuba's energy situation is so bleak, its grid so broken, and its economic situation so dire that renewables can only be a small part of the puzzle right now. So, a clean energy revolution, quote, sounds nice on paper, but you've got to have the resources, said Ricardo Torres, a Cuban economist at the American University in Washington. So, this isn't solving Cuba's problems instantly. There's no like quick switch that's just swapping it over to renewables and everything's fine. But the way the American administration is doing these things around the world, it's given up on soft diplomacy and is pushing hard diplomacy, which then has everyone go, yeah, no, don't like that. We're going to go a different way. We're going to go off and support China, and so China's solar panels, because China's got solar panels and wind turbines, and we're going to go with that. And as you know, if you listen to, I think it was yesterday's show or any other show, I am a big fan of solar, a big fan of wind turbine, big fan of all these things, and I would go with those any day of the week. If I could, I would just go solar straight up. Don't need anything else, pretty much. And so this kind of situation, Cuba is a great example, I think, or is showing to be a great example, that if you push people into a corner, they'll work out what to do. They'll work out a different way. And if you're the United States and you try to destroy people, they will fight back. They will develop a different method. They will go a different direction. And in this case, Cuba has said, well, if we're not going to be able to get oil, let's go with solar. Because again, once you've got the panels, apart from a bit of maintenance and stuff, you're independent. You don't need somebody else. And I think that's part of the problem for a lot of big industrial people, is that they're like, oh, wait a second, our cash cow's gone. It used to be that you had to drive a car and you had to pay for petrol, and we made money off the petrol. But if you've got a car or a mode of transport that doesn't involve that, then we don't make any money. I've been thinking lately about what's the most effective, efficient, cheap way for transport, and it's walking. If I could have everything walking distance, that'd be great. Because not only is walking good for me, but I don't have to pay anyone for anything. I don't have to pay. If I want to drive somewhere, I've got to have a license. I've got to pay for petrol. I've got to pay for the car. I've got to do all these things. You shrink that down to a bicycle with a trailer for your stuff. Again, it's good for you. It doesn't cost as much. There's still some costs involved, and I wouldn't be too against a registered road tax. If the roads were better suited for bikes, I'd pay for that. That'd be fine. But because it would be cheaper than cars, and it's better for me, better for the environment, etc., etc. The obsession with cars, I don't get. I like cars; they're very useful. I want a van, but I love my bike and I like walking. And it's so that I can have some kind of independence, energy independence. I'll use oil if I need to, if I want to, but isn't it great to be able to not use oil and not have to rely on other people and their profits? Anyway, that's enough of that hippie shit. This has been the Daily Freakout. Thank you so much. It's Thursday, the 14th of May. Tune in tomorrow for the 15th of May's episode on Friday. And until then, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you. The delay on this one.
Tractor systems are offline. Number one for today's hits and all-time favorites.
Today's hits, that's right. Klaus Vondelik's Mr. Hammond organ. Thank you very much. This has been the Daily Freakout. If you appreciate the show, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you've listened this far, you are possibly the first person to ever make it to the end of the episode. Congratulations, you're a superstar. And I will see you tomorrow and in the future.